happy you guys have joined us this evening. We are filming from the Rocky Pond Estate Winery in Woodinville. And I'm here as Margaret Elizabeth with
Rafael Rodriguez.
And we have a very special guest with us today. We have Daniel McInturff is here, and he is a psychotherapist with Aspire Counseling Services. We are going to be talking today about ghosting. Have you guys ever been ghosted?
Who hasn't? In this day and age, who hasn't been ghosted?
Yeah, and we should probably talk a little bit about what is ghosting. But before we do that, we're going to ask the question we ask all of our guests, and that is, Daniel, why do you think that we have the nickname as the Seattle Freeze?
Do we have half an hour? Do we have like 2 days? It's interesting because I do see a lot of clients who experience this. It's not a made up thing. It's a real thing. And
Yes.
It's a real issue in this culture. But I think using that word is appropriate, culture. I think we've developed a type of culture here that makes it difficult for people to break in and create real bonds and real connections. Surface bonds, surface connections, acquaintances, we have lots of them here, lots of them. But getting beyond that is difficult, and I think it's a cultural thing, and I think it has to do with some of the liberal beliefs and attitudes that we have here, and how people care about one another here. But it's a long story. I'm not sure we can complete that story. Right.
No worries. Yeah, there's so many complexities that goes into the Seattle Freeze, and we just like to hear the perspective. Have you experienced this yourself?
The freeze?
The freeze?
Not too much, because I grew up here, right?
Okay.
So I'm native. My experience is different.
So you're part of the problem.
I've got enough friends. Yeah, so.
No, you guys, I have so much respect for Daniel. He has got such an amazing practice. He has been a psychotherapist for over 20 years. He's worked with children up to adults. He's built this amazing career of a lot of customers who trust him and his amazing guidance. He's also been a counselor for, what was it, emergency therapy? Or
Crisis intervention.
Crisis.
I've worked in the industry for a long time. I'm older than I look. So yeah, lots of different
You're aging
things.
well.
Thank you. Lots of different practices. But yeah, mostly couples and adults, adolescent and parent guidance counseling at this point.
Oh, great. That's wonderful. Well, so he is the authority, you guys. So we want to dig in now and figure out what is behind the ghosting. Now, for you out there who do not date and have been in a long-term relationship for many decades, may not understand this new phenomenon of ghosting. And so I'm going to break it down real quick. And so ghosting is when you're communicating with someone and you just disappear. And I like to say it's kind of like, end of conversation. That person just went away. And, my way of dealing with it is I like to be a little bit snarky about it. And I usually send a little ghost emoji, the one with the pirate on one eye and the tongue sticking out. And I just kind of say, hey, are you ghosting me? I just call them out on
Do you ever get answers back?
I do. And actually the funny thing is people are usually I'm so sorry, because they can see you're kind of making fun of it, so you're not mad, and I think if they can take it in a lighthearted way.
That's a great way to respond.
Thank you.
I like that.
Yeah, but usually as a guy, when you get ghosted, it doesn't matter what you said, you're gone. You're never getting a response ever again.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's different for men and women that way, I wonder.
Yeah.
Actually. Yeah,
Possibly.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah, I'm so used to being ghosted, I've actually become kind of callous about it. And I think what happens is pretty soon, and this is like a Seattle Freeze too, you just start doing it yourself. Because you just get so used to it being part of the culture. So maybe you kind of break down the psychology of this, of why do people do something that I don't even think is a good thing to do, but then I find myself also, because it kind of starts to seem like the normal practice, I start to do it too.
And that's kind of what I was referring to in terms of the freeze, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a culture that develops and that culture spreads.
Right.
And people don't even know they're doing it, and it's a little bit insidious, right? And then it becomes its own thing.
Yeah.
That's interesting. We repeat the behaviors,
Right.
even though we don't like them.
Yeah, I try not to,
Exactly.
but sometimes I think accidentally too. There's
Yeah.
accidental ghosting.
Yeah.
And why would people ghost then? That's the
That's the
million-dollar
question, right? That's the question. Listen, I think there's two main reasons why people ghost. We'll take them one at a time. We're going to make it simple. People tend to be relational, and people tend to be transactional. So the people that are relational are really in the relationship for the sake of the relationship. They value the relationship and they value the person in the relationship. But first, to understand why ghosting happens is you got to understand how important relationships are to human beings. So the part of us that's just an organism walking around on this planet, we have two main biological imperatives: stay alive and procreate. Right? That's it. Right?
That's important.
These things drive, they drive.
Nothing wrong with that.
They drive everything we do. Like if we really think about everything we do, it comes down to those things. And so what that creates is an issue in relationships, because to stay safe, we live in a tribal modality for hundreds of thousands of years, right?
Yeah.
And that's what curated our emotions. So our emotions have developed in such a way where to stay safe, I need the other person. I need connection. That whole notion of safety in numbers is absolutely true. The tribe didn't have to kill you if there was an issue. They would just kick you out of the tribe because you were going to die anyways. So relationships really became paramount to our safety, right? Absolutely. And of course, for procreation, it was an issue in tribal modalities to find appropriate mates. So it was a struggle and it was difficult and it was hard, right? So again, those primary relationships became very difficult and very loaded as well, right? So the relationships in general, if you understand how important and why they're important to us, then you can start to understand why ghosting happens.
So in a way, like for relationship people,
Yeah.
ghosting would be the modern way of kicking them out of the tribe, and
That's a good point. I mean, that's an interesting point. I'm gonna go a different direction with it in terms of, I think what happens is because somebody is so concerned with the relationship, right, that any kind of confrontation, any kind of conflict, any kind of disconnection is threatening to them, right? It creates a whole lot of angst, negative feelings, painful feelings, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what we end up doing is avoiding those kinds of feelings by walking away, right? Just ending the relationship and not having to be in situations where there's confrontation, or there's conflict.
Right, I was gonna say that's non-confrontational.
It's
They just don't want to deal with the confrontation at all, so they just disappear.
Yeah, especially in this culture here, you find a lot of that. We don't want to upset anybody. We don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. We don't want to have to face embarrassment. And so in a lot of situations, because it's so loaded, it's also loaded in terms of self-worth. We get a ton of self-worth through other people. Rightly or wrongly, that's how we establish how we feel about ourselves often. So if this person rejects me, or if I reject them, that has place into people's self-worth, self-identity, self-esteem. It's a difficult situation. And also, what we know now about relationships is the primary factor at the end of your days, if you've lived a happy or fulfilling or meaningful life, is relationships.
Yeah.
It's having supportive,
Absolutely.
helpful, connected relationships. It's not fame, it's not fortune, it's not money, it's not stuff, it's not the things you've done as
Right.
much as it is first and foremost relationships.
Relationships, and that's what we're here talking about. This whole show, right,
It's
is
to
about
promote
relationships.
more relationships.
Yeah, to improve relationships, to help people have more healthier relationships, and that's why we're talking about the ghosting today.
Yeah. And that's where ghosting becomes a problem, because it sabotages the relationship, right? Because we just walk away. We don't have those conversations that are difficult. We don't talk about people in terms of how we're feeling or what we're needing. We don't deepen the relationship because it's a lot easier to not face the conflict, the fears around disconnection. We can just walk away.
Right.
Right? So instead of saying to somebody, I'm sorry, it was really great to get to know you. I appreciate it. I'm just not having those kinds of feelings towards you. The primary feelings or romantic feelings aren't there for me, but it was great. Thank you. Wish you luck. And then you leave the relationship. There's this, I'm just not going to go there. I'm not going to say it. It's too hard. It's too embarrassing. I don't know how they're going to feel. I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what they're going to think.
I don't know if they're gonna throw things at me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They were avoiding anger and bad feelings and difficulty.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So do you have this come up in therapy?
Well, how do you mean? In terms of people talking about that experience?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God, all the time. So, in fact, today, I
Oh, yeah?
had a young man, and he actually gave me permission to talk about it. I don't know how much I should talk about, but
What age
but it's
range
classic.
was this?
23, I believe.
But
Yeah.
was he the one that ghosted or the one that was
So
ghosted?
here's the deal. That ghosting can happen in all kinds of ways,
Mhm.
right? It can be through texting. It can be, through not showing up. It can be through. So this is a situation. It sounds like a Seinfeld, episode. But it's a situation where he met her at a restaurant. They were having a good conversation. Things were going well. They were asking good, curious questions about each other, what they believe, what they think. She asked for his favorite 3 movies. She didn't like favorite movies, and she didn't like one of those picks.
Oh.
She had an issue with it in terms of masculinity and femininity and some.
Like these movies are supposed to define his whole personality.
Yeah, this is right.
Oh, wow.
Exactly. So they had a conversation. They had a disagreement about the movie and what it represented to each of them. She asked to go to the bathroom, and she never came back.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, that's a big ghosting.
Yeah, that's a big ghosting.
That's
right?
a really big ghosting. Wow. So what was your recommendation to him to process this?
Well, listen, I've seen this young man for a while, and he gets it, right? He knows that it has nothing to do with him. It's not personal.
It's not personal.
She brought her issues into that situation and made assumptions about him and his beliefs and who he is.
And that's the biggest message, right? That it's just not personal.
It's not personal. It's about this other person's issues around, again, confrontation, relationships, and the fears that come up in relationships.
Now, I heard on the radio one time that they were doing this funny thing about how apparently pizza is a big deal. Like you ask a guy what kind of pizza they eat, and that's supposed to be all telling about their personality. So what kind of pizza do you eat?
Man, I'm gonna have to psychoanalyze that. That might take some work.
You don't like that.
I'm not sure.
It divides people like pizza with pineapple
Pizza.
or no pineapple.
What does it mean about a man if he likes pineapple?
All right.
Or-
So I'm clearly a Canadian bacon, mushroom, and onion guy.
Wow.
This has always been my pizza.
That's actually pretty
So you
unique.
tell me what that means.
I don't remember what it was, but there was something about, there was one pizza choice that if a guy chose it, this woman wouldn't see him anymore. That was the whole conversation was.
Why would anyone care about like what other people are
Right.
eating?
Well, I think it's, they think it's their
It's something
character.
that won't affect them.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah. No, I think we're
no
we're
sense.
making up stories and we're projecting
Right.
that into that situation,
Right.
creating a narrative about somebody that probably has nothing to
Based
do.
on a movie or
It's still,
pizza.
but it's still fun, right?
Yeah.
We still get to know each other and ask those questions.
Yeah.
I think that's fun. Yeah.
So there was another type of
Yeah.
of person. So like you said, like there's the relationship kind of person
Yeah.
and there's the transactional kind
Yeah,
of
yeah,
person.
yeah.
Like how does that like?
Right. Relational versus transactional. So you should just understand what that means first of all. And again, relational is more that they value the person and the relationship for the sake of the relationship and the connection that they have. Transactional is valuing the relationship more for what they can get from it. So people that are more transactional are going to ghost for different reasons. Somebody who's relational is they're afraid of conflict. They're afraid to hurt other people's feelings. The confrontation is scary.
Or they're scared to get hurt.
I'm
in
scared
the
to get
process.
hurt too. Right. It works
Right.
both ways.
Yeah.
Fear of getting hurt, fear of hurting other people.
Right.
People that are relationship care more about those things. People that are transactional, they care more about control. They care more about power. They may be looking for some personal feel-goods. If somebody wants me, they value me, if they love me, if they're texting me sexy, hot things, then they feel good about themselves in that moment, right?
Right.
So they're just trying to get these feel-goods from these people. And once they do, they're done. They don't really care about how that affects the other person. They don't put themselves in that other person's shoes necessarily to understand how they might feel. And so once they're done, and they can just walk away or throw it away.
So
And there's a lot of power and control in that too, when you're controlling the relationship.
is there like any tricks to identify if the person is more transactional or more relational?
Yeah. That's a good question. Listen, nobody's completely transactional and nobody's completely relational.
Right.
I say those things to make it simple and easy to kind of understand.
Yeah.
There's certain situations where we're going to be more transactional, and then there's certain situations in relationships we're going to be more relational.
Mhm.
So I don't mean it to say that we're either this or that. We're way too complex to think in those terms.
Yeah.
But as a way of talking about it, it just explains some of those differences and nuances, and how ghosting can be one thing or it can be another thing.
Right. Well, those are really, really good points. So have you personally experienced the ghosting, and how as a professional would you handle this situation?
I have not, to be honest with you, I can't remember a time that I've experienced ghosting.
Wow.
Yeah, I
That's pretty
don't
good.
think I ever have personally, I have to say. But here's the deal. What I always say to people is if somebody's not into you, then you're not into them. It's the golden rule of relationships. It's simple, it's clean,
Yeah.
and it doesn't matter how much you wanted that person and how great you think they were and what you thought you had, but they said this and they must feel this way, and none of that stuff matters. If they're not into you, you're not into them, so you let it go. It's clear, and clearly if somebody ghosts you, then they're not into you, right? You haven't impacted them enough in their life for them to show up in a way where you can develop a relationship. They're not into you, you're not into them, you move on.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I come really clear on is, especially with dating, is someone shows you, does something you don't like, such as ghosting, they're just letting you know that they're not your person. And it's kind of like, thank you for telling me that and getting that, clear up front, and then we just move on. And so it's just really easy for me now, because I've been doing dating so much over the last 2 years, that now I've gotten really actually pretty good at it, and it doesn't bother me. In the beginning it bothered me, it doesn't bother me anymore. My roommate, she was in a relationship for 9 months and then got 100% ghosted. What is this? Now this to me is a lot deeper of an issue. This isn't just, I forgot to get back to that person on texting, on the dating app. No, this is an intimate relationship of 9 months. So can you try to help us understand? I thought that maybe the man died, like he just fell off a cliff and boom. But he just went ghost.
Yeah.
So can you help me understand what you think?
That's an interesting situation, and a horrific situation.
Oh yeah,
that's hard.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it speaks to the fact that there's so much duality that exists in people, especially right now. It's we can show one thing in terms of our public selves, but our private selves can be radically different at this point. So I think that can be part of it. It's hard to truly know somebody and get to know them in their hearts of hearts. And I always tell people it takes a super long time to get to know somebody. Not just a year, but 2 years, 3 years. You got to get to know somebody at different stages in terms of their life. Like when things are good, how are they? When things are bad, how are they? When things are okay, how are they? And then how are you during those times as well? And how do you guys relate in those different stages of the relationship? It takes a long time to get to know somebody. But the thing that I would ultimately say about this is that people, they struggle to be authentic. They struggle to be open and vulnerable and honest, right?
Yes.
So what they do is they find themselves in terms of a situation where they've gone so far down the rabbit hole and they've been faking it for so long that the only thing they feel like is left for them is to just bail, is to just leave. And I think that it's an incremental thing where there's a hiddenness in the relationship that they can't expose and they can't confront in the context of the relationship, and so they just leave. So I think it's more about inability to be truly authentic with where they're at in the relationship.
That's really good. Thank you, Daniel.
Yeah.
Well, you guys, this is such a big topic that I was talking to Daniel earlier that I think we need another episode. So we're going to bring Daniel back to have another conversation about that. So explain to them what we're going to talk about in the next one. What to do.
Exactly. I think it'd be interesting from both perspectives. So people that ghost, how can you approach that differently? How can you think about it differently? What can you do? How can you be more comfortable in terms of having those kinds of conversations that are really scary and hard and vulnerable? But then also talk a little bit more about people that have been ghosted. How might you think of it? What you want to do for yourself and in response to situations like that, how you want to think about those kinds of situations. I think it'd be good to talk
Yeah,
about this.
and the repercussions of it too. So yeah, we can kind of deep dive into all this on the next episode. And I also wanted to mention to you guys that we have a big event coming up. We have an event called Dancing with the First Responders. It's going to be happening on October 1st, so you're not going to want to miss that. Look for the tickets, should be going on sale in the next few weeks. And every Thursday right now we are going to be doing something really fun, so look on our website for the most current information on that. We also have it on Facebook and Instagram. We will be doing something with Woodinville Wine Country, some blind wine tasting, some mystery wine tasting, so look for that. That's going to be so fun. And we also meet at the Forum in Bellevue, so on Thursday nights, so look for that. That's a happy hour experience. So thank you guys for joining us, and catch us on the next part 2 with Daniel. Bye for now.
Thank you.